When everything around you started to collapse, you thought it was the end. You remember those nights when silence was your only companion, when you lay awake wondering if you had misunderstood every promise God ever whispered to your soul. The people you once helped vanished the moment you needed them. The doors you prayed would open seemed locked, not by men, but by heaven itself. There was a heaviness in your spirit that words could never capture, a deep ache that made you question whether you were really chosen or simply cursed. You watched others rise easily while you were left to wrestle in the shadows, asking why your obedience brought pain instead of reward. But what you didn't see then, what you couldn't have known in the dark, is that God was not abandoning you. He was constructing the very platform of your elevation in silence. He was breaking every dependence, every illusion, every false comfort, because he intended to rebuild you with his own hands. The wilderness was never meant to destroy you. It was meant to prove what could survive the fire. And now, as you stand here bruised but breathing, you can feel it, the energy shifting, the tables turning. It's subtle at first, almost invisible, like a tremor before the quake. People who once ignored you now feel your absence, like a missing heartbeat. Those who dismissed you sense that something is aligning in your favor. And deep inside, you know it too. The tables are turning, not out of vengeance, but divine justice. You were hidden on purpose. God hid you because he knew the noise of premature recognition could drown out his voice. He let you be underestimated, so your rise would never be attributed to man's endorsement, but to his power alone. You were never overlooked. You were preserved. Every closed door was a form of protection. Every rejection was heaven's redirection. You were being positioned for something greater than you could comprehend. You see, the path of a chosen one is never straight. It's carved through valleys of loss, mountains of betrayal, and deserts of waiting. While others seemed to sprint ahead, God slowed you down because he wanted you to build roots before branches. He let the applause fade, so you could learn the rhythm of his whisper. You begged him to make things move faster, but he knew what speed would destroy you. He saw that if you received what you prayed for too soon, it would become your idol instead of your assignment. So, he withheld it, not to torment you, but to teach you. He used silence to mature you. He used stillness to strip away your pride. You thought you were losing, but you were only losing what couldn't stay in your destiny. The betrayals that cut the deepest were actually God's way of pruning your path. He couldn't allow everyone to travel where you're going. Some people were attached to your past version, the one that needed approval, validation, and acceptance. But the version of you that is rising now, that version needs only God. You don't seek to prove anymore. You exist to fulfill. The ache you've been carrying has become your altar, and the tears that once fell from confusion are now watering the soil of manifestation. Think about David, the forgotten shepherd boy. His father didn't even consider him worthy of being called when the prophet came to anoint a king. Yet, while everyone else was fighting for visibility, David was learning the language of solitude. He was learning how to worship without witnesses. He was learning that true greatness is not announced, it's revealed in due time. You, too, have been learning that. You've been feeding your spirit while others chased attention. You've been cultivating peace while others built platforms. And now, as the time of unveiling approaches, you'll understand why it all had to happen this way. The tables are turning, but they're not turning in the shallow way you once imagined. This is not about proving them wrong. This is about God proving himself faithful. He is about to put you in the position they said you'd never reach, not because you fought harder, but because you surrendered deeper. There were moments you questioned your worth, moments you looked in the mirror and saw only the echoes of exhaustion staring back. You felt like your prayers evaporated before they reached heaven, and the more you tried to hold on, the more everything slipped away. You thought God was silent, but he was actually speaking through circumstance. Every delay was his way of saying, "Not yet, because I'm not done shaping you." Every disappointment was a redirection away from counterfeit blessings. He was building spiritual stamina in you, the kind that can only be forged through pressure. You didn't just survive the storm, you became one. The very wind that once threatened to tear you apart has now become the breath behind your resilience. The chosen ones are never built in comfort, They're built in crucibles. That's why your pain was so intense. It wasn't random, it was targeted refinement. God knew your destiny carried weight, so your preparation required fire. The people who once dismissed you couldn't see what was incubating inside. They saw failure. God saw foundation. They saw loss. Heaven saw leverage. Every closed chapter was writing your comeback. And now, as the divine clock strikes alignment, everything that once worked against you will begin to work for you. Don't be surprised when the same voices that ridiculed you start to soften, when those who doubted your potential begin to seek your wisdom. It's not arrogance to recognize you're rising, it's awareness of fulfillment. God doesn't elevate to inflate, He elevates to demonstrate. You are becoming a living testament that His promises don't expire, even after seasons of silence. You've been through betrayal that cuts so deep it changed how you love. You've been through losses that made you question your own purpose. But what if I told you that none of it was wasted? Every heartbreak was heaven's investment. Every wound became a doorway. When you thought the story was over, God was simply turning the page. You were never disqualified, you were being distinguished. The very pain that made you feel abandoned is the same pain that birthed your anointing. That's why you feel different now. That's why your energy doesn't fit where it used to. The old you could survive anywhere, the new you belongs somewhere specific. And that somewhere is being prepared as we speak. Don't mistake stillness for stagnation. You are standing in divine transition, that fragile, quiet space between what was and what will be. It's uncomfortable because you're shedding the old frequency of survival and stepping into the vibration of purpose. That discomfort you feel is spiritual expansion. It's the stretching of destiny. You are being reintroduced to yourself, the version God always intended, the one unafraid to walk alone, the one unshaken by silence. The tables are turning, not because you demanded justice, but because God decreed restoration. You don't have to chase it. What's yours is magnetically drawn to your anointing. Every loss is folding into alignment. Every delay is turning into divine acceleration. The same pain that once weakened you is now the proof of your authority. And though you can't see it yet, the shift has already begun. The reversal has been written, and the stage of your redemption is being set behind the curtain of the unseen. You'll soon understand that what you thought was isolation was really incubation. You weren't being cut off, you were being carved out. Every unanswered prayer was an answered preparation. God wasn't ignoring you. He was ensuring that when you rise, you'll stay risen. He doesn't want to just give you the throne. He wants you to have the heart to sustain it. And that heart has been formed through every lonely night, every tear-soaked pillow, every day you showed up despite feeling unseen. Those unseen moments have become sacred testimonies. They are the oil behind your anointing. They're why you will not crumble under the weight of what's coming. Because what's coming isn't random success, it's restoration with purpose attached. The same hands that broke you are the ones that will have to witness your blessing. Not so you can gloat, but so they can see that God never forgets those who remain faithful in silence. The tables are turning, chosen one, and heaven is preparing to make it public. But before the world sees it, you must first feel it. And right now, somewhere deep in your spirit, you do. You feel the quiet power returning, the still certainty that after everything, you are not forgotten. You are only being positioned. And soon, the ones who laughed will watch in awe as God puts you exactly where they said you'd never stand. You began to notice it slowly, almost imperceptibly at first, the air around you shifting, the heaviness in your chest lifting piece by piece, like dawn quietly bleeding into night. It wasn't sudden, it wasn't loud, but it was real. The same silence that once felt suffocating began to carry a strange peace. The same solitude that felt like punishment started to feel like sanctuary. You didn't even realize that your tears had stopped flowing the same way they used to, not because everything was perfect, but because something within you was changing. You were beginning to see the purpose behind the pain, the beauty behind the breaking. You realized that your story was never meant to end in defeat. And though you still walked through uncertainty, your steps carried a quiet authority, the kind that comes only from surviving storms you thought would kill you. That's when you began to understand This wasn't about loss or delay, it was about transformation. You weren't being punished, you were being prepared. The rejection wasn't God's absence, it was His redirection. He was turning your path, piece by piece, toward a destiny you couldn't yet comprehend. You began to remember those moments when you gave your best to people who couldn't see your value. You loved deeply and were met with betrayal. You stayed loyal to those who used your kindness as convenience. You showed up for people who never once checked if you were okay. Every time you were overlooked, it tore at something inside you. Every time you were replaced, it made you doubt whether you were enough. You didn't know it then, but God was allowing you to experience the pain of misplacement so you'd recognize true alignment when it finally came. You had to feel the sting of being taken for granted, so you would never again settle for being tolerated. You had to walk through the shadow of dishonor so you could learn how to walk in honor without arrogance. The very rejection that broke your heart was the classroom of discernment. You learned not just who people were, but who you were when no one was clapping. You learned that your worth was never determined by who stayed or who left, but by the one who never let go of you. Even when you let go of yourself, the mockery didn't break you. It refined you. The words they spoke against you became the soundtrack of your metamorphosis. Like Joseph, thrown into a pit by his own brothers, you were betrayed by those you once trusted most. But what they meant for harm, God was using for elevation. You see, betrayal isn't always about people, it's about positioning. God used their rejection to reroute your direction. If they hadn't pushed you out, you would have never stepped into the spaces you were destined for. If they hadn't closed their doors, you would have never discovered the gates heaven had already prepared. You cried over what left, but what left was only clearing room for what's meant to stay. And that's why, when the tables turn, it will not be an act of revenge, but of revelation. God will reveal why the pain was necessary, why the people had to leave, why the silence lasted so long. He will show you that nothing was wasted, not the tears, not the loneliness, not even the confusion. Every ounce of suffering has been recycled into divine purpose. You are entering a season where the unseen becomes undeniable. Those who thought they buried you are about to realize you were only planted. You see, burial and planting look the same from the outside. Both involve being covered, forgotten, and left in the dark. But one ends in death, the other in resurrection. And you, chosen one, were never meant to stay buried. You were destined to rise. God has been nurturing your roots in secret, and now the soil can no longer contain you. The growth that was invisible will soon be visible to all. That's what divine reversal feels like, not instant vindication, but gradual revelation. You begin to understand that the suffering was sacred, that the rejection was holy, that the wilderness was not wasted time but a womb. Everything was gestating beneath the surface, waiting for heaven's appointed hour. You remember those moments when you begged for a word, any word, from God. You sat in stillness, surrounded by silence, wondering if He had turned away. You were desperate for a sign, a dream, something to remind you that you weren't forgotten. But heaven said nothing, and that silence became your torment. You thought the silence meant disapproval, but it meant trust. God was quiet because He knew you were strong enough to hold the silence. He knew that your faith had to mature beyond feelings. He was teaching you that His presence is not always loud. Sometimes it's the stillness itself. He was strengthening your spiritual hearing, tuning your heart to recognize His movements without words. That's why when the shift begins, you won't need confirmation. You'll just know. The silence trained your spirit to sense God beyond sound. And now, that silence is breaking. You can feel heaven whispering through the wind again. You can feel momentum gathering beneath your feet. You don't even have to announce it. Those with spiritual eyes can already sense the oil on your life thickening, your authority deepening, your purpose sharpening. You're no longer who you were when you started this journey. The pain reshaped you. The delays refined you. The loneliness baptized you in divine strength. You've shed your old self, the one who needed permission to be powerful, the one who mistook humility for silence, the one who dimmed their light to make others comfortable. That version of you served its purpose. But this version, this evolved, grounded, discerning version, is who God had in mind all along. The tables are turning because the person you've become is now ready to sit at them. It's funny how God works, how He'll use the same places that broke you as the stage for your redemption. The same hands that mocked you will now have to applaud you. The same voices that said, "You'll never make it," will be forced to acknowledge the divine favor over your life. But it won't even be about them anymore. You won't rise with bitterness. You'll rise with peace. Because when God restores, He removes the need for revenge. You'll look at those who hurt you and feel nothing but quiet gratitude. They were your unwitting teachers. They taught you how to see yourself through God's eyes instead of theirs. They taught you how to stand alone, how to walk by faith when no one was clapping. You'll realize that their rejection was a blessing wearing a mask. Without them, you would have settled for less. Without them, you would have remained in rooms too small for your calling. The tables are turning, but not in the dramatic, movie-like way you once imagined. This isn't about sudden fame or overnight success. It's about quiet elevation, the kind that happens when heaven breathes your name into the hearts of those who can open the right doors. It's about divine timing, where everything suddenly connects without effort. It's about alignment, where what once resisted you now recognizes you. God is not just restoring what you lost. He's reconfiguring your entire path. He's removing every counterfeit and positioning you for encounters that will shift your destiny. Every relationship, every opportunity, every step from this point forward will carry purpose. Nothing will be wasted because now you've learned the rhythm of divine movement. And yet, even as you feel the tide shifting, part of you still trembles because stepping into the new means releasing the old completely. That's the hardest part for a chosen one, letting go of what was, even when it no longer fits. You've built an identity around survival. You've lived in constant alertness, waiting for the next betrayal, the next setback. But God is calling you into peace now, into still waters where your spirit can finally rest. You're not in a season of fighting anymore, you're in a season of flowing. And that's what this turning of the tables truly means, not that the battle intensifies, but that the battlefield changes. You no longer fight for your place. Your place begins to call for you. You no longer chase destiny. Destiny begins to chase you. Breathe. Let go of the tension you've carried for years. You don't have to prove anything anymore. You don't have to explain your process or justify your faith. The evidence will speak for itself soon enough. Those who doubted you will see. Those who left you will remember. Those who tried to bury your name will hear it again, this time in honor. But even then, it won't be about them. It will be about what God was always doing behind the curtain of your chaos. He was never punishing you. He was perfecting you. Every delay was divine precision. Every heartbreak was holy realignment. Every silence was strategic preparation. The tables are turning, and this time, they're turning permanently. No force, no enemy, no circumstance can reverse what God has ordained. You are not coming back to prove something. You are rising to fulfill something. And this moment you are standing in is just the beginning. The shift is not coming. It has already begun. You can feel it now, can't you? That invisible current pulling you forward, even when you don't know exactly where it's leading. It's as if life itself is rearranging its pieces around you, quietly, deliberately, like a divine hand moving through the unseen. The same roads that once led to dead ends are now glowing with possibility. The same conversations that used to drain you now feel like doors. You can't quite explain it, but you sense that something massive is unfolding in the spirit, and somehow, you're at the center of it. What was once chaos is now order. What once felt like exile is beginning to feel like divine strategy. You're not where you were, and you're not yet where you're going, but something inside you knows. You are right on time. This is the moment where the shift becomes visible. This is where the pain starts to make sense. You've spent so long asking, why me? And now you finally whisper, I see why. Because everything you lost was making space for what could not coexist with your old self. You couldn't reach this version of your destiny with the mindset that once defined you. God had to take you through the valley, through the pit, through the silence, so you could see that the real promise wasn't about what you'd gain. It was about who you'd become. You used to measure your worth by the progress you could see. You used to think that if doors weren't opening, you must have done something wrong. But now you see it differently. You've learned that divine timing has nothing to do with visible results and everything to do with spiritual readiness. Sometimes God pauses everything around you just to make sure that when the blessing comes, it doesn't become your downfall. That's why He had to strip away the noise. That's why He had to isolate you. You thought you were being punished when you were actually being promoted in private. The wilderness wasn't exile, it was elevation in disguise. He hid you not because you were unqualified, but because you were too precious to be exposed prematurely. Diamonds don't develop in daylight. They're formed under pressure, in darkness, away from the eyes of the world. That's what your life has been, a diamond process. You were buried in trials, crushed under expectations, and refined by pain, but you never broke. You bent, you wept, you questioned, but you didn't give up. And that endurance, that raw resilience, has become your crown. You have survived what was meant to silence you, and now your very existence testifies that divine preparation always precedes divine promotion. Think of Joseph again, betrayed by his brothers, thrown into a pit, forgotten in prison. For years, nothing made sense. He had a dream that seemed impossible to fulfill. But when the tables turned, they turned swiftly. One day he was a prisoner, and the next he was second in command to Pharaoh. God doesn't need years to restore. He just needs one divine moment. That's the kind of turnaround you're stepping into, the kind that doesn't just lift you up but redefines your name. You're not just being restored to where you were, you're being elevated to where you were always meant to be. Every delay, every disappointment, every betrayal, it all becomes fuel for this unveiling. The same voices that said you'd never make it will now say they always believed in you. The irony of heaven is poetic like that. But when it happens, your heart won't be bitter. You'll smile quietly, knowing it was never about proving them wrong. It was about proving that God was right about you all along. There's a quiet justice in divine timing. God doesn't just restore what you lost, He multiplies it. He allows the same soil that once rejected you to produce fruit for you. He doesn't erase your pain, He redeems it. The people who laughed at your downfall will witness your elevation, not because you need their validation, but because God wants them to see what faith looks like fulfilled. You're entering a season of public recompense. The nights of private weeping are turning into mornings of visible favor. And the beauty of it all is that your heart has been softened, not hardened. You no longer crave revenge. You crave peace. You no longer want to be seen by people. You want to be seen by God. That's how you know you've graduated spiritually, when what once hurt you no longer has the power to define you. But before the full unveiling, there's one last test every chosen one must face, the test of self-belief. Because even when the tables turn, even when the opportunities arrive, there's still a part of you that remembers the pit. A part of you that wonders, do I really deserve this? You've grown so accustomed to survival that success feels foreign. You hesitate to step into the light because you've lived so long in the shadows. But this time, God won't let you shrink. He will push you forward, sometimes even force you into visibility. Because the world needs to see what obedience looks like rewarded. The anointing you carry was never meant to stay hidden. The silence was preparation, but now the stage has been set. You are walking into a season of divine visibility, the kind you can't manipulate, the kind that finds you even when you're not looking. Just as Pharaoh called for Joseph, destiny will call for you. You won't have to chase it, it will locate you. That's how divine alignment works. What is yours is magnetically attracted to the frequency of your obedience. You'll start to see it unfold in small ways first. Unexpected opportunities, sudden connections, divine coincidences that feel too perfect to be random. That's God's way of confirming that you're in sync with His timing. But the real shift will happen internally. Your confidence will return, but it won't be ego-driven. It will be quiet, sacred, rooted in knowing who you are and whose you are. You'll stop explaining yourself to people who can't understand your process. You'll stop dimming your light just to fit into rooms that were never built for your fire. You'll walk differently, speak differently, even think differently. Not because you're trying to impress anyone, but because you finally understand that being chosen isn't about status, it's about stewardship. You carry something heaven entrusted to you, and now it's time to release it into the world. And as you step into that calling, the past will try to whisper. The enemy will try to remind you of your failures, your mistakes, your heartbreaks, anything to make you doubt your worthiness. But you must remember, those chapters no longer define you. You've been rewritten by grace. Every sin has been forgiven. Every weakness has been turned into wisdom. You're not who you were. You're who you became through the breaking. The very things that once embarrassed you are now the evidence of your becoming. The story that once brought you shame will now bring others healing. That's the beauty of divine reversal. God doesn't erase your scars. He anoints them. The wounds that once bled now shine with glory. The tears that once blurred your vision now reflect divine clarity. What once felt like punishment has become proof of purpose, and as the tables continue to turn, the spotlight won't expose you. It will reveal you. The world will see your fruit, but only you and God will know the cost of that fruit. They'll see the blessing, but not the breaking. They'll see the grace, but not the grit. And that's how it's meant to be. You'll carry your testimony quietly, humbly, like a crown no one can steal. The same fire that once tried to consume you now dances around you as light. You are no longer the victim of your story. You are the vessel of God's victory. The pain that once threatened to drown you has become the river that carries you into destiny. And when you look back, you'll realize something extraordinary. You never truly lost anything. You only released what wasn't aligned. What's coming will not replace what was lost. It will redeem it. You are now walking in a realm of divine exchange, where everything the enemy stole is being restored in greater measure. The time you thought was wasted is being returned as wisdom. The seasons you thought were lost are being resurrected in purpose. The relationships that broke you are being replaced by connections that build you. God is not just giving you back what you lost. He's giving you what you should have always had. This is not the same ground you once stood on. This is new soil, fertile and favored. The tables have not only turned, they've been rebuilt to seat you in places you once only dreamed of. And this is only the beginning, chosen one. The real unveiling, the divine recompense, the heavenly justice, it's just ahead. Everything you went through was preparation for this next stretch. What's coming next will not just change your circumstances, it will change your identity. You won't just survive this time, you'll reign. And the world will finally understand what heaven already knew, that the one they overlooked was the one God anointed all along. And so it begins, not with thunder, not with applause, but with a stillness that feels holy. The shift doesn't announce itself with fanfare. It arrives quietly, like the dawn after a night that felt endless. You start noticing small things, how peace feels heavier than fear now, how you don't chase answers anymore because your spirit already knows them. You look back on the person you used to be, the one who begged for validation, who questioned their worth, who mistook delay for denial, and you realize how far you've come without even noticing. The transformation wasn't loud. It was sacred. You were evolving while you thought you were breaking. Every sleepless night, every unanswered prayer, every door that stayed shut, it was all rewriting your inner blueprint. And now, standing at this threshold, you understand that the tables turning isn't just about external change. It's about internal mastery. You are no longer waiting for your life to begin. You are walking in the awakening that your pain prepared you for. You have become someone who doesn't need to chase light, because you are light. The same world that once dismissed you will soon try to understand you. They'll look for the version of you they remember, the one who doubted, the one who needed saving, but they won't find that person anymore. God didn't just change your circumstances, He upgraded your spirit. You've developed discernment that can't be taught, strength that can't be faked, faith that can't be shaken. That's why you feel detached from the things that once thrilled you. That's why conversations that used to matter now feel empty. It's not that you've become cold, it's that you've become consecrated. You're tuned to a different frequency, the one heaven broadcasts on. And though the people around you may not understand it, those meant for your next chapter will. They won't see you as too much or too different. They'll recognize you as divine alignment. This next season of your life isn't about explaining yourself. It's about embodying yourself. You've spent years proving. Now it's time to simply be. But as this transformation deepens, don't be surprised if life tests your new peace. There will be moments where the past knocks again, old triggers, familiar voices, opportunities disguised as lessons. Not every open door is from God, and not every admirer has pure intentions. You'll have to use the wisdom pain taught you to discern what aligns with your destiny. Remember, elevation attracts imitation. The enemy can't steal your blessing, but he can distract you long enough to delay it. Stay alert. Guard your peace like treasure. You are carrying something rare, an anointing forged in the fire, and the higher you rise, the more valuable your stillness becomes. Sometimes silence will be your greatest weapon. You don't have to respond to every misunderstanding or fight every battle. The same God who defended you in private will vindicate you in public. This time, your silence will speak louder than your explanations. There's a moment every chosen one faces, a moment where they must decide whether to play small to keep others comfortable or to rise fully into who they are. That moment is here for you. For so long, you've dimmed your light to avoid being misunderstood. You've hidden your dreams to avoid mockery. You've pretended to be ordinary so others wouldn't feel insecure around your calling. But no more. God is calling you out of hiding. You were never meant to blend in, you were meant to stand out. The very thing that made you too different was the marker of your purpose. Your isolation wasn't rejection, it was selection. You were being set apart, and now it's time for that separation to make sense. There's no more shrinking, no more apologizing for your anointing. You were born to disrupt patterns, to awaken others, to bring heaven's blueprint to earth. And though that calling will cost you comfort, it will give you something far greater: clarity. You'll start seeing divine setups disguised as simple moments. A conversation that feels random will open a door. A detour that feels inconvenient will lead to a destiny connection. God is moving pieces behind the curtain in ways you can't yet comprehend. Every delay has been strategic. Every no has been divine redirection. You might look around and wonder why others seem ahead, but heaven's timeline isn't measured by human milestones. While they were being seen, you were being sculpted. While they were gathering attention, you were gathering depth. And now that the foundation is strong, God can build on it without fear of collapse. You are not late. You are perfectly aligned. Destiny never runs on human clocks. It unfolds on divine rhythm, and when that moment of unveiling comes, it will be undeniable. The same people who whispered about your absence will marvel at your reemergence. But this time, your spirit will be different. You won't seek revenge. You'll seek redemption. You'll use your success, not to flex, but to heal. You'll speak with humility, because you know what it costs to stand here. The tables turning won't make you arrogant. It will make you grateful. You'll finally understand why God took his time, because he wasn't just preparing the blessing, he was preparing you to sustain it. Many people get blessings they can't handle because they never healed the version of themselves that would sabotage it. But you've been through the breaking, the burning, the refining. You can carry the weight of what's coming without collapsing. That's what makes you different. That's what makes you chosen. Still, there's one more layer of healing God will bring before the full manifestation: forgiveness. Not the surface kind where you say, "I forgive," but still hold the memory like a scar, but the deep kind, the kind that frees your soul from replaying old pain. You'll know you've reached that place when you can bless the ones who betrayed you and mean it. When you can look at the people who hurt you and see them as tools in God's plan, not villains in your story. Forgiveness doesn't mean what they did was right. It means it no longer has the power to control your emotions. It's the final act of release before elevation. God can't pour new wine into old wounds. He's about to fill your cup, but first, he must make sure it's clean. That's why certain memories have resurfaced lately, not to torment you, but to purge you. You're being emptied of resentment to make room for reward. And in that emptiness, something sacred happens. You begin to feel peace not as an absence of conflict, but as a constant presence. You realize you don't need closure from people who broke you because you've received revelation from the one who healed you. You stop replaying conversations that never gave you answers and start trusting that divine justice doesn't need your participation. That's where true maturity lives, in knowing that what's meant for you can't be stolen and what's not meant for you can't be forced. You start living lighter, freer, untethered to outcomes. And ironically, it's that surrender that pulls everything you once chased straight toward you. When you stop grasping, grace starts gathering. This is the part of the journey where heaven begins revealing why you were hidden so long. You'll see that it wasn't punishment, it was preservation. God kept you from certain opportunities because they weren't ready for your frequency. He protected you from relationships that looked right but carried hidden sabotage. He silenced rooms that weren't meant to hear your voice yet. Every not yet was divine mercy disguised as delay. And now that your heart is healed and your vision is clear, He's about to release you into spaces that fit your anointing, spaces that honor your authenticity, not just your ability. The waiting season was never wasted. It was sacred ground for spiritual maturity, and as you stand at the edge of this new beginning, you can sense it, the energy shifting, the air thick with expectancy. You're not just entering a new chapter, you're entering a new dimension of being. The tables aren't merely turning, they're transforming into altars, places where your pain becomes praise and your trials become testimonies. You'll no longer just talk about faith, you'll embody it. People will look at your life and see evidence that God is still in the business of divine reversals. You'll become living proof that no valley lasts forever, that every pit has a palace at the end of it. And in that awareness, your spirit will whisper something sacred. It was all worth it. Because it was. Every tear, every delay, every detour, all worth it. This is only the unfolding, the full revelation, the moment where heaven's justice becomes visible. That's what comes next. And when it does, it won't just change your story. It will redefine how others see God through you. It begins slowly, like a storm gathering far beyond the horizon, invisible at first, but undeniable in its approach. You can feel it in your chest before you see it in your life. The shift, the divine rearrangement, the quiet rumble of destiny awakening. For so long, you've walked through seasons where nothing made sense, where you prayed and heard silence, where you gave and got broken in return. But something inside you kept whispering, keep going. And that whisper wasn't your imagination. It was heaven sustaining you when your strength had run out. You've been moving on divine fumes, and now you're about to understand why God didn't let you quit. Because everything that once buried you is about to bloom. The same soil that suffocated your hope will now testify of your resurrection. You've been through the burial. Now comes the unveiling. The tables are not just turning, they are transforming, lifting, ascending to meet you at the level of your new identity. This is the moment when heaven begins to release what has been stored with your name on it, and not because you begged for it, but because you became it. You've become the version of yourself that can finally handle what you prayed for. Remember how many nights you cried asking God for a breakthrough? You imagined it would come as a sudden miracle, lightning from the sky, a door swinging open, a voice declaring, now. But that's not how it arrived. It came quietly, disguised as endurance. It came through moments when you wanted to walk away, but chose to stay faithful. The miracle wasn't the door opening, it was your decision not to give up before it did. That's how heaven measures readiness, not by what you can achieve, but by what you can withstand. And you, chosen one, have withstood much. You have faced betrayal and still chosen compassion. You have faced silence and still chosen faith. You have faced delay and still chosen trust. That's why God is now choosing you to represent what divine favor looks like after fire. When people see your life in this next chapter, they will say, surely, God was with them. Because there will be no other explanation for how you made it out of what was meant to destroy you. This next season of your life will not be built on striving, but on flowing. You've learned that divine favor doesn't respond to pressure, it responds to peace. When you stop chasing what's not aligned and simply rest in who you are, what's meant for you begins to find you effortlessly. The energy shifts from pursuit to magnetism. That's why you've been feeling drawn toward solitude again. Not loneliness, but sacred separation. It's God's way of fine-tuning your spirit, of pulling you back from the noise so you can clearly hear the instructions for this next level. Because, make no mistake, the next season will require precision. The same discernment that protected you in the wilderness will guide you in abundance. Not every opportunity is a calling, and not every admirer is an ally. You'll need to know what's divine and what's distraction. That's why he's anchoring your spirit before he elevates your platform. He's not just giving you visibility, he's giving you vision. You might notice strange moments in the days ahead, a sudden pull to revisit old dreams, an unexpected encounter that feels like destiny, or a random memory resurfacing with new meaning. These aren't coincidences. This is how God threads time together. He's showing you that nothing was wasted. Every season, every heartbreak, every loss is now converging into one divine narrative. You'll realize that even the betrayals were blessings in disguise because they redirected your heart toward alignment. Even the losses were not really losses. They were divine subtractions preparing space for true abundance. You've been emptied so that you could finally be filled, not with noise, not with ego, but with purpose. And now, that purpose is about to spill over. The turning of tables doesn't happen in one dramatic instant. It unfolds like dawn, slowly flooding every corner of your life. First, you'll see it in your spirit, peace where there was once pain, confidence where there was once confusion. Then you'll see it in your surroundings, new connections, unexpected opportunities, sudden clarity about what to do next. Doors that refused to open before will swing wide with ease because now, you're walking in divine timing, not personal timing. You don't have to force anything anymore. What's meant for you has already recognized your frequency. All you have to do is stay aligned. The kingdom is moving pieces for your arrival. The people who once doubted you will now be required to honor you, not because of revenge, but because God's justice always restores in public what was lost in private. But even as this abundance arrives, stay grounded. Don't forget the wilderness that made you wise. The temptation in this next season won't be fear, it will be comfort. Comfort will whisper, "You've made it. You can relax now." But true chosen ones know that favor isn't the finish line, it's the fuel. What God gives you now isn't just for you, it's for those who are still in their valley. You will become a light for the ones walking through what you survived. Your story will become their map. That's why your rise will feel different. It won't be about status, it'll be about service. The blessings won't inflate your ego. They'll expand your capacity to love, to give, to lead. You're not just being promoted, you're being positioned as a vessel of impact. And the same fire that refined you will now radiate through you as warmth. In moments of reflection, you'll catch yourself smiling at memories that once broke you. You'll look back and think that had to happen. Not because the pain was pleasant, but because it was purposeful. You'll realize that the people who left didn't reject you, they released you. The jobs, friendships, and situations that ended weren't punishments. They were redirections. Everything you thought was falling apart was really falling into place, just not in the way you expected. That's how divine architecture works. It builds backward, dismantling first what was never meant to last, so that what's eternal can rise in its place. And now, what's rising is unstoppable. The foundation is spiritual, and no human interference can undo what heaven has decreed. Soon, you'll walk into rooms that used to intimidate you and realize they no longer hold power over your peace. You'll speak words that carry authority, not because of volume, but because of vibration. You'll attract people who don't just see your potential, but respect your process. And perhaps most beautifully, you'll no longer crave closure from your past. You'll understand that closure isn't an event, it's a decision. It's the moment you choose to no longer let yesterday dictate your direction. You'll walk forward, not needing apologies, not needing explanations, just trusting that divine justice has already handled what you couldn't. The shift is not coming, it's here. And it's moving quickly now. God is accelerating timelines that once seemed frozen. What took years before will happen in months, even weeks. Not because you're striving harder, but because the spiritual resistance has lifted. The gates that held you back have been commanded to open. Heaven has issued a release over your name. This is not just restoration. This is restitution. For every sleepless night, every tear, every heartbreak, divine compensation is unfolding. The measure won't just be double. It will be pressed down, shaken together, and running over. You will stand amazed at how effortlessly things begin to fall into place, not because of luck, but because of legacy. You're not stepping into success, you're stepping into prophecy. But here's the truth few will tell you: when the tables turn, you must also turn, from fear to faith, from doubt to destiny, from surviving to thriving. Because if you try to carry the old version of yourself into this new chapter, you'll find yourself shrinking in spaces meant to expand you. That's why God closed certain doors behind you. Not to trap you, but to keep you from running back to comfort when growth gets uncomfortable. He's calling you forward, and this time, there's no going back. The chapter you're stepping into requires your full becoming, your healed self, your wise self, your faithful self. And as you walk into it, heaven will make sure every step you take is ordered. You'll feel guided, supported, covered, because you are so. Take a deep breath, chosen one. Look at how far you've come. You are standing in the afterglow of answered prayers you once thought were denied. The silence that broke you has turned into a symphony of purpose. The waiting that once felt endless has become evidence that God's timing is flawless. And even though you don't have every detail figured out, you finally trust the one who does. That's what it means to be chosen, not to have certainty, but to have surrender. You no longer need to know when, because you've learned to rest in who. The storm that once terrified you has taught you how to dance in the rain. And now, as the winds shift in your favor, all of heaven leans in to whisper, it's time. This is your season of visible victory, your era of divine proof. You're stepping into the very thing they said you'd never reach. The tables have turned, and they're set in your favor. But the revelation, the true unveiling of why it all had to happen, that is what's about to unfold next. There's something sacred about this part of the journey. The stillness before the unveiling, the quiet hum of heaven before manifestation bursts through the clouds. You can feel it now, that strange combination of peace and anticipation, like your spirit already knows what your eyes haven't yet seen. The atmosphere around you is shifting. The same air that once carried the weight of disappointment now hums with expectancy. It's as though time itself is bending to make room for what's about to enter your life. And though your circumstances might still look ordinary, your spirit knows nothing about this moment is ordinary. God has been working behind the curtain, and you are about to step into what He's been preparing for years. Everything you've endured, every betrayal, every lonely night, every unanswered prayer, all of it was building this moment. You didn't know it then, but heaven was taking notes. Every tear was recorded. Every heartbreak was seen. And now, the divine ledger is about to balance in your favor. You are standing at the edge of divine reversal, and nothing, not even the mistakes you made, can stop what's coming. Because grace doesn't just restore, it redefines. You've been trained for this season in ways you didn't even realize. The heartbreaks taught you discernment. The isolation taught you independence. The silence taught you stillness. You've developed spiritual muscles no one can see, and now those invisible strengths are about to produce visible blessings. But as this elevation begins, understand this: not everyone who clapped for you in your pain will be able to celebrate your rise. Some people were comfortable with your struggle because it made them feel safe. They could love you as long as you were under them, but when God begins to raise you above them, their hearts will reveal their true condition. That's why this next level requires wisdom. You don't need to announce every victory or defend every blessing. Let your fruit speak for itself. The same God who revealed you in private will now vindicate you in public. The tables have turned, yes, but they've also tilted, and the false attachments that can't handle your elevation will slide away naturally. Don't grieve what's leaving. It's heaven's way of pruning your path for purpose. The truth is, you've already felt this separation coming. Certain conversations feel heavy now. Certain spaces feel too small. That's not arrogance, that's spiritual growth. You've outgrown the vibration of survival. You no longer resonate with gossip, with fear, with people who live from their wounds instead of their wisdom. You've stepped into a new energetic dimension where peace is your currency and purpose is your compass. And while that may mean fewer people around you, it also means more power within you. God is isolating you again, not to hurt you this time, but to launch you. The same solitude that once felt suffocating will now feel sacred. You'll begin to cherish it because you'll realize it's in the silence that God gives the strategy. Before every public move, there's a private meeting with heaven. That's what this season is, a divine briefing before deployment. Heaven is downloading blueprints for your next assignment. Pay attention to your dreams, to the sudden ideas that stir your heart, to the people you feel magnetically drawn to. They're all pieces of this new chapter. You'll notice something else happening too, divine reversal in the most unexpected places. People who once overlooked you will suddenly need your insight. Places that once rejected you will now request your presence. Opportunities that once ignored you will now chase you down. You won't have to force any of it. The shift will be undeniable. It's the kind of turnaround only God can orchestrate, the kind that makes people say, "How did that happen so fast?" But you'll know the truth. It wasn't fast. It took years of faithfulness in unseen seasons. It took years of planting seeds no one clapped for. The harvest only looked sudden because the world didn't see the watering. But God saw it. Every time you prayed when you were tired. Every time you showed up when you wanted to disappear. Every time you chose faith over fear. You've built spiritual momentum, and now it's catching up all at once. You're not lucky, you're aligned. You're not suddenly successful, you're finally seen. The spotlight that's finding you now isn't random, it's reward. And yet, in this moment of unfolding, there will still be whispers of doubt. That small voice inside will ask, "Am I really ready for this?" You'll feel the tension between your new identity and your old insecurities. That's normal. Every chosen one experiences that trembling before transformation. Remember, even Moses hesitated at the burning bush. Even Esther questioned her worth before walking into the king's presence. God doesn't choose the qualified, He qualifies the chosen. So when that doubt rises, silence it with remembrance. You've already faced worse and survived. You've already been broken and rebuilt. You've already walked through hell and come out holy. What's ahead of you cannot intimidate someone who's been forged in fire. You're ready, not because you feel it, but because you've been refined for it. I end this chapter. Your words will carry weight. Your presence will shift rooms. You won't have to try to be influential. Your authenticity will do it for you. The same vulnerability that once made you feel weak will now make you magnetic. People will feel God when they feel you, because your spirit carries evidence of what faith under fire produces. That's why you went through the pain, so that you could carry presence. You don't just talk about faith, you embody it. And the world is starving for that kind of realness. You'll be called to speak life into people who are standing in the very storms you once drowned in. And when you speak, your words will pierce through walls because they'll be soaked in experience. That's how heaven uses you, as a living reminder that nothing is wasted, that no pain is pointless, that no season is meaningless. There will be moments when you'll feel the old version of you trying to resurface, the one who overthinks, who worries about opinions, who doubts divine timing. But this time you'll catch it. You'll breathe. You'll remember who you are. Growth doesn't mean you never feel fear. It means fear no longer makes your decisions. You'll walk with a quiet confidence, not loud, not forced, just steady, knowing that if God brought you this far, He won't drop you now. That confidence is your armor. That faith is your shield. And with it, you'll begin to notice something miraculous. You're no longer reacting to life. You're responding to destiny. The storms that used to shake you will now strengthen you. The attacks that once derailed you will now remind you how anointed you are. Every challenge becomes confirmation. Every delay becomes direction. Every battle becomes a bridge. And through it all, you'll begin to sense heaven's justice unfolding in real time. The people who lied about you will find themselves facing the truth. The ones who mocked your faith will witness its fruit. But your heart will be too healed to gloat. Instead, you'll pray for them because you'll understand that spiritual victory isn't about domination, it's about elevation. You're not rising over them. You're rising above the vibration that bound you to them. That's true freedom, when your success doesn't need to prove anything. You'll walk with the calm of someone who knows their crown was never up for debate, and in that peace, something extraordinary will happen. You'll begin to feel joy again. Not the fleeting kind that depends on good news, but the steady kind that flows from gratitude. You'll wake up and realize that the same life that once felt like a burden now feels like a blessing. You'll find beauty in small things, sunlight through curtains, laughter with strangers, moments of silence that feel sacred. That's how you'll know the healing is complete. When life no longer needs to be perfect for you to be thankful. When you can smile even without the answers. When you can love without fear of loss. That's when you've crossed over from merely surviving to truly living, and as that joy grows, the final pieces of the divine puzzle will start to lock into place. The purpose that once felt distant will suddenly become tangible. The people you were meant to meet will appear effortlessly. The vision God placed in your heart will begin to materialize before your eyes. And you'll realize that what you're walking into isn't just success, it's fulfillment. The kind that doesn't drain you, but sustains you. The kind that doesn't make you famous, but makes you faithful. The kind that doesn't impress the world, but pleases heaven. Because this, chosen one, was never about the table turning for you. It was about the table turning through you. You've become the vessel through which divine justice, divine favor, and divine love will flow into the world. And as the heavens align above you, the whisper grows louder. It's time. The unveiling is near. The revelation is ready. The moment when everything you've endured finally makes divine sense. That's what comes next. And when that unveiling begins, it won't come softly like a whisper. It will arrive like thunder rolling across the heavens. Everything that's been hidden will start surfacing in divine timing, and the world will finally see the weight of what God has placed inside you. You'll wake up one day and realize the old heaviness is gone. The ache in your spirit that once kept you restless has been replaced by a peace that feels supernatural. Your heart will no longer beat with anxiety, but with divine alignment. You'll walk through the same streets that once saw you at your lowest, but this time with a light in your eyes that tells a different story. People will notice. They won't be able to explain it, but they'll feel it, the authority that now rests upon you. It's not arrogance. It's not pride. It's divine confidence, born from the ashes of surrender. You'll speak less, but say more. You'll move slower, but with greater precision. You'll carry yourself like someone who's met heaven face to face, because in many ways you have. Every time you broke down and cried to God in secret, heaven was listening, and now that intimacy has become your identity. The presence that once visited you occasionally will now dwell with you continually. You'll find yourself guided by instincts that feel holy, led to places you didn't plan but later realize were divinely orchestrated. You'll begin to operate in flow, where doors open before you knock and answers appear before you question. This is not luck. This is favor activated through faith. You spent years walking by faith when you couldn't see. Now you'll begin walking by sight because your faith built the vision. And as this manifestation unfolds, God will begin aligning people to your path who carry similar oil, those who've been through the fire, who know the cost of calling, who understand that anointing isn't glamorous, it's sacred. Together, you'll form divine alliances, not based on popularity, but on purpose. These people will feel like family, not by blood, but by spirit. They'll speak your language, the language of destiny, of discernment, of divine timing. And through these connections, new doors will open, doors you once thought were locked forever. But remember this, with new elevation comes new energy warfare. The brighter your light shines, the more it exposes shadows around it. Old spirits of insecurity, envy, and confusion may try to reattach themselves through new faces. But this time, you'll recognize them immediately. You'll no longer fall for flattery disguised as friendship or opportunities dressed as distractions. You'll move with discernment so sharp that nothing can deceive you anymore. That's what divine maturity looks like, not fighting every battle, but knowing which ones are worth your energy. You'll start to feel it, the peace that comes from walking in obedience rather than reaction. You'll no longer chase validation because you'll understand that purpose doesn't need applause. You'll no longer beg for clarity because you'll trust that divine silence is still communication. You'll no longer worry about provision because you'll see how effortlessly heaven funds purpose. That's when you'll know you've entered your promised land, not a place of comfort, but a place of complete trust. And yet, amidst all this light, there will be moments when your soul aches for simplicity again. You'll long for the quiet days when it was just you and God in the waiting. That longing isn't regression, it's reverence. It's your spirit remembering that the secret place is where power begins. So even as your influence expands, never lose your intimacy. The same tears that built your altar in the dark are the same waters that will keep your heart pure in the spotlight. Guard your time with God like it's oxygen, because it is. The moment you disconnect from the source, you'll feel the drain immediately. That's why the chosen are often misunderstood. They don't move for attention, they move for assignment. You're not chasing the next big thing. You're stewarding the next divine thing. And that requires focus, stillness, and continual surrender. You'll start noticing divine patterns repeating in your life. Numbers, dreams, unexpected confirmations. Heaven will communicate with you through symbols only your spirit understands. You'll walk through a day and realize God has been speaking in every detail, through songs, through encounters, through coincidences that aren't coincidences at all. You'll begin to live prophetically without even trying. That's the beauty of divine alignment. You don't have to force the flow. You become the flow. You'll feel when to move, when to pause, when to speak, when to stay silent. You'll no longer panic over timing because you'll understand that divine timing never rushes, yet is never late. Every delay was delivering you from what would have destroyed you. Every no was protecting your yes. Every loss was pruning your purpose. You'll look back at all those unanswered prayers and realize they weren't ignored, they were rerouted. As you walk deeper into this season, God will begin revealing your influence in ways that ripple far beyond your imagination. You'll say something simple to someone, a phrase, a story, a prayer, and later find out it changed their life. You won't even realize the magnitude of your words because humility has become your foundation. That's what makes you different. You're not trying to be seen. You're trying to serve. You're not chasing platforms. You're building altars. That's why God trusts you with visibility, because He knows fame won't corrupt what fire already purified. The world will see the success, but heaven will know the story. They'll see the glow, but heaven will see the scars. You are living proof that what the enemy meant for evil, God has turned into divine evidence. Your very existence has become a sermon. Every breath you take now carries a message that redemption is real, that grace wins, that purpose always prevails. But even in this glory, stay anchored. Because this season isn't the end, it's preparation for something even greater. You may think you've reached your destiny, but God is smiling, whispering, "This is only the beginning." There's another layer of calling waiting to be revealed, another mountain waiting to be climbed. Each level of purpose reveals a deeper dimension of surrender. Don't fear it. You've already proven you can handle the wilderness. Now it's time to master the promise. But remember, the promised land requires just as much faith as the desert did. Because blessings come with responsibility. Abundance requires wisdom. Expansion demands humility. So as you rise, stay rooted. Let prayer be your compass, let gratitude be your ground, and let love be your language. Because the higher you climb, the more heaven expects your heart to remain low before God. There will come a moment when you'll stand in awe of how everything aligned. You'll see how every heartbreak redirected you, how every delay preserved you, how every closed door was God's way of saying, "Not this one. Something better is coming." You'll see how divine protection sometimes looked like rejection, and you'll thank God for every no that kept you safe. You'll see how even your mistakes became material for miracles. And when you finally understand it all, tears will fall, not of pain, but of reverence. Because you'll realize that God was never punishing you, He was positioning you. The crushing was never cruelty, it was crafting. You are being shaped for significance, and when you least expect it, you'll feel heaven whisper one last instruction. Now pour. Because what God gave you isn't meant to stay contained. It's meant to overflow. Your story will become a lifeline for others still trapped in their storms. Your wisdom will light the paths of those wandering in the dark. Your voice will carry healing for those who lost hope. That's your legacy. Not what you built, but who you became. You'll start to see your influence spread quietly, touching lives you'll never meet. People will send you messages, telling you how your words saved them, how your journey inspired them, how your resilience gave them courage. And you'll realize the true reward of being chosen isn't recognition, it's impact. You didn't just survive your story, you redeemed it. You didn't just walk through fire, you became the flame that lights the way for others. And in that moment, when everything you've endured has been transformed into purpose, you'll sense something stirring in the atmosphere again, a familiar hum, a divine momentum building. Heaven isn't finished with you yet. There's still one more unveiling, one more divine twist, one more miraculous move left in your story. The next chapter is already writing itself in light. The stage of destiny is set. The heavens are leaning in. The final revelation is near. And then, just when you believe the story is settled, God moves again. Not to disrupt your peace, but to expand your territory. This final movement will not come with noise or chaos. It will come with calm power, the kind that shifts the air without warning. You'll wake one morning and sense something different. The spiritual atmosphere will feel alive, like creation itself is responding to your presence. Everything that once resisted you will begin to yield, because the season of resistance has ended and the season of realization has begun. You'll start seeing divine acceleration everywhere. Opportunities that once took years to develop will now align in weeks. Delays will suddenly dissolve. People who once doubted you will now seek your counsel, not because you forced respect, but because God orchestrated recognition. This isn't human validation, it's divine vindication. Heaven is announcing you, not through fame or noise, but through divine evidence. The same people who said you'd never make it will have to acknowledge that it was never you holding yourself up. It was God. You'll feel His favor manifesting in real ways. Unexpected blessings, supernatural provision, divine encounters that remind you how real He is. The things that once caused you anxiety will now become testimonies. You'll remember the sleepless nights when you asked God, "Why me?" And now you'll whisper the same words through tears of gratitude. "Why me, God? Why did you choose me for this?" And heaven will whisper back, "Because you didn't quit when no one was watching." Every hidden sacrifice, every private act of obedience, every tear you buried in the dark, it all counted. None of it was forgotten. While the world saw nothing, heaven was keeping record. And now, every act of faith, every moment you chose prayer over panic, every time you forgave instead of retaliating, it all became currency for this moment. You weren't just enduring, you were investing. And now the return is here. The tables have not only turned, they've been replaced. What was once loss is now leverage. What was once shame is now strategy. What was once broken has become blessed. And as this new level of grace unfolds, you'll understand that it was never about reaching a position. It was about becoming a vessel. God didn't elevate you so you could be admired. He elevated you so you could be effective. Your life has become an instrument of His glory. Every chapter of your story is now a doorway for someone else's deliverance. The pain that once isolated you has now positioned you as a bridge for others. The loneliness that once crushed you has now turned into leadership. You'll walk into rooms you never thought you'd enter, not because of credentials or connections, but because of calling. And when you speak, it won't just be your voice, it will carry the weight of heaven behind it. People will feel the difference. They'll sense the purity of your spirit. They'll hear the authority of someone who's wrestled with God and walked away transformed. That's what makes the chosen different. They carry presence, not performance. You'll stand before the same world that once looked away, and instead of bitterness, you'll feel compassion. The ones who mocked you, the ones who used you, the ones who abandoned you, your heart will release them all. Because once you've tasted redemption, revenge loses its flavor. You'll realize that your rise isn't about proving anyone wrong, it's about proving God right. You'll look at the faces of those who hurt you and see lessons instead of enemies. You'll understand that they were part of your refinement. Without betrayal, you wouldn't have learned discernment. Without rejection, you wouldn't have learned self-worth. Without loss, you wouldn't have discovered strength. Everything worked together, not accidentally, but intentionally. It was all scripted, every heartbreak, every miracle, every silence. And when you finally see it clearly, gratitude will flood your soul in a way words can't describe. You'll bow your head and say, "Now I understand." This is the revelation moment, the divine climax of your story. It's where confusion becomes clarity and sorrow becomes song. It's the moment when heaven's narrative finally makes sense on earth. You'll realize that God didn't turn the tables for revenge. He turned them for revelation. The turnaround was never about you being on top. It was about God being glorified through your transformation. You'll see that what He gave you wasn't just restoration. It was resurrection. You didn't just recover what you lost. You became something entirely new. You are not the same person who walked into the storm. You came out refined, wiser, quieter, and more dangerous to darkness than ever before. The humility you carry now is your greatest armor. The peace you protect now is your greatest victory. The faith you hold now is unshakable because it was built through fire. You've become living proof that what the enemy cannot kill, God will crown. And so, you'll begin to move differently. Your steps will feel guided, not forced. Your pace will be slower, but your impact deeper. You'll start noticing divine precision in everything, the right connections, the right timing, the right doors. You'll stop chasing outcomes and start trusting alignment. You'll live in flow, not fear. You'll wake up each day knowing that everything that happens is either a blessing or a building block. You'll no longer beg for signs because your spirit will recognize them instantly. You'll operate from a place of quiet authority, the kind that doesn't need to announce itself because presence speaks louder than performance. You'll be comfortable being unseen again because you finally understand that visibility doesn't equal value. Your confidence won't come from titles or applause. It will come from intimacy with the one who called you. That's what it truly means to be chosen, to walk with God so closely that even silence feels sacred. And one day, when you look back, you'll see the thread of grace running through every season of your life. You'll see how even your weakest moments were woven with divine strength. You'll see how every delay was a setup, how every loss was a lesson, how every failure was a doorway disguised as defeat. You'll laugh through tears as you realize how perfectly God orchestrated it all. You'll remember the moments when you were on the floor, asking Him to end it, and now you'll thank Him for not listening. Because if He had given you what you wanted, you would have missed what you needed. And now, standing on the other side, you'll finally see that He never withheld good things from you. He was just waiting for you to become ready for them. And you are ready now. The tables have turned, not because of chance, but because you passed the test of character, of patience, of faith. Walk forward now with boldness. The waiting season is over. The wilderness is behind you. You are stepping into divine release, where what was delayed will be delivered, and what was lost will be returned multiplied. You don't need to chase what's coming. It's already being drawn to your spirit. You've entered the magnetic field of favor. Every seed you sowed in tears will now bloom in abundance. Every promise that felt forgotten will rise in fulfillment. You'll see prayers answered in ways you didn't even imagine. You'll see healing, restoration, opportunities, and breakthroughs arriving like waves that never stop coming. This is not random. It's the result of divine design. The same God who allowed the storm is now commanding the wind to carry you forward. And as you stand in this moment of completion, your heart will finally be still. The noise of the past will fade, the confusion will quiet, and only peace will remain. You'll feel a calm assurance deep in your bones, a knowing that everything unfolded exactly as it was meant to. The journey, the pain, the silence, the rise. All of it was the process of becoming. You didn't just survive, you transformed. You didn't just wait, you evolved. And now you carry the fragrance of heaven everywhere you go. When people encounter you, they won't just see success, they'll feel God. That's the final reward of the chosen one's journey. Not wealth, not fame, but presence. You are the evidence that grace is real, that endurance is holy, and that God never lies. Lift your head. Breathe in the stillness. Let gratitude wash over you like light. The same God who allowed you to be broken is the one who now calls you whole. The same God who watched you fall is the one who now crowns you with glory. You are no longer in the waiting. You are in the fulfillment. The tables have turned, the season has shifted, and the prophecy is complete. Walk as if heaven is applauding, because it is. The angels who watched you weep are now watching you rise. The same ground where you once buried your pain is now the soil of your harvest. This is your time, your turn, your divine reversal. The story that began in tears is ending in triumph. You are not who you were. You are who God always said you'd become. The tables have turned, chosen one, and the throne is ready.